who don't know who Blaine Graboyes is probably been under a rock or hasn't been involved in anything, but you've been everywhere and anywhere. But I wanted to just give us a recap of, what you've been doing and, how you got involved in all of this.
Thanks, guys. I'm Blaine Graboyes. I'm the co-founder and CEO of GameCo. We launched the first ever skill-based video game gambling machines in North America in 2016. And we started the company specifically to bring video games in all forms to casinos. We're just getting ready to launch some really exciting products in 2020 that are perfect for the CEC audience.
That's wonderful. That's very exciting to hear. So we've all been hunkered down, all sitting at home, wondering, how in the world we're going to be, right now, I mean, it's probably quite quiet. I know that you're in Vegas. Have you been to the Strip? And what have you been doing during the pandemic, business-wise and personally?
Sure. I am in Las Vegas, and it is pretty quiet here. I've driven down the Strip twice and seen just a handful of cars and locals walking. Really never seen it that empty before. GameCo immediately went to a work from home structure as soon as the lockdown started in early March. We've been focused on game development primarily, both for our land-based games and for our online money iGaming games. We also just launched our partnership with a company called Grid, where we're offering their esports data platform to casinos and sports books in North America. So we've been very focused on that as well. And actually, we've learned a lot during the process here. And one of the things we've decided to do is to continue to support a work from home structure ongoing. So while we have offices in New York and Vegas, and we will maintain the office in Vegas for warehousing and a showroom and meetings, a small showroom in New York, we're planning to allow our team worldwide to continue to work from home ongoing.
That's great. A lot of people are realizing that they could work from home during this pandemic. But so as we're down here and sort of hunkered in, and Vegas is a ghost town. After this pandemic, I mean, when things start opening up, what do you see for the landscape of the gambling industry from the perspective of your company, as well as the general perspective? What do you think that the casino industry has learned being locked down in this pandemic? You've heard the explosion about esports and the wagering and all of that, and that taking into account. But taking that into account, but overall, what is the future of entertainment going to look like in a casino as compared to what we have, what we've had post-pandemic?
Well, I think everyone rightly is going to be focused primarily on health and safety first, which I think is super important. We're starting to schedule game updates and installs now for when casinos reopen, which we expect to happen on a fairly regular basis in June ongoing. There's already been a couple of openings. And I think in general, this is a great opportunity for innovation, to rethink the physical and digital experience for casinos, and primarily to think about it in a player-centric way of who are the audiences and consumers that we want to reach. And at GameCo, for us, it's gamers and esports fans. We find that our average player is 25 to 35 years old compared to the typical slot or table games player who might be in their 50s, 60s, or 70s. And so we're very focused on giving casinos both land-based and online tools to attract and monetize those younger audiences. And we've really seen the proof in our operations over the last 3 years. Probably the strongest data point is 81% of the spending on our games in casinos comes from Gen X and millennial casino gamers. And that compares to only about 20% of spending on slot machines from a similar audience. So we know that video games attract and monetize a different audience, and we're really excited to help casinos continue to understand and benefit from that.
You know, it's funny you mentioned, you talked about the health as a first and foremost thing post-pandemic. When you have a video gaming terminal that multiple people will use over a period of time, how do you make sure that that person, it's a clean area? Are you looking in anything like virtual, like VR, not VR, ultraviolet blasts onto the machine equipment with like that kind of like as an overhead, so it could clean every time somebody leaves? Or are you guys doing anything or thought about that?
So the responsibility is primarily on the operator, but of course we want to be partners with them. So it starts first with the layout of machines. We're recommending to operators our 3-unit carousel. So it puts 3 machines back to back in kind of a circle. And by nature of the geometry of the machines are 6 feet apart automatically. We are working with some partners on some antimicrobial coatings for the machines, which actually resist the ability to transmit different viruses and germs such as COVID. We are looking at UV solutions as well, but primarily we're doing it in support of the operators and giving them a toolkit for their operations. We're not on site 24/7, the operator is. And so we want to be their partner in giving them solutions to be able to maintain a safe environment.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a quick question, if I could. I want to get away from a little bit of the pandemic stuff, because I think at this point right now, we don't know what's around the corner, but we keep going there. And I think that for the purpose of this and for the viewers, I want to make sure that you are able to get a good description of what you're actually doing. And I mean, we've known you for a long time, so for us it's like we know, but a lot of people don't. So if they're listening in, and I hope that they are, I wanted to get a little insight into where Gameco started, where you are now, okay, and what that looks like. I mean, if somebody hadn't been to CES or hadn't seen the videos of the Soul Calibur release and the other things that you've done, if you could just walk us through a little bit of that progression. And then sort of, some people who have gotten involved in this space have fallen away, I should say. Okay, they didn't have the longevity to be able to keep pushing forward and coming up or molding themselves within the environment like I think you've been able to do. So if you could just touch on that a little bit, like what the difference is, what you're doing apart from what's been done.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I think you bring up a interesting point about the challenges of being in a regulated, complex industry such as the casino industry. And for Gameco, one of our primary tools is just to listen to people and take their feedback and advice. And I think that's really important in this business. There's a lot of people that have been in the industry for a long time. They have a lot of value and insight to add. You have your customers who are playing the games on the floor. You want to see how they react to the product, and you want to continue to make improvement. So we started with our first generation of games in 2016. We call it the Video Game Gambling Machine, or VGM. And our primary product is a single player video game that you play in the casino on a physical cabinet for real money. We're now in the 5th generation of our single player games. And the biggest innovation in our latest generation of games is a technology we've developed called Gamer's Edge. And Gamer's Edge does 3 things for our games that are in direct response to feedback we've gotten in the industry. So the first thing it does is it allows skilled players to win more money than the average player, because that's really the promise of this category of skill-based games. The second is it ensures that the average player still has a good gambling experience, very similar to the experience they'll have on a slot machine in terms of their payout and winnings. And the last piece, which is critical, is it ensures that the casino has a fixed hold percentage. So the casino is able to manage the risk on their side. We've had machines out with Gamer's Edge since last fall, particularly as part of our Nevada field trial, which we were approved on in March of this year. And we're now building Gamer's Edge into most of our new games. And we're really excited about getting those games into the casinos when they reopen. We also are poised to launch our casino esports product line. And that's really comprised of 2 primary products. One is our multiplayer arena, which networks our single player games and it makes them multiplayer with 2 gameplay modes. One is what we call competition mode, where up to 8 players compete against each other for the pot and the house takes the rake. And the other is tournament mode, where up to 32 players play in bracketed esports style tournaments. So really bringing esports directly to the casino floor. The other part of our casino esports offering is our partnership with a company called Grid, where we are offering their esports data to casinos and sports books for esports wagering in jurisdictions where that's legal. And we really believe that the Grid offering is the most innovative, highest quality, most accurate, and therefore most valuable for casinos and sports books to take wagers on esports. The last big thing that we've been doing over the last year that's new for us is getting into iGaming. So we've been making a number of online HTML5 games for distribution into regulated real money casinos around the world. And these games also feature our Gamer's Edge technology, where more skilled strategic players have the opportunity to win more money. So it's a continuation of our core business in the video game gambling machines, expansion into casino esports, and expansion into iGaming as well.
Okay, so that's fantastic. Thank you for that. But I have to say that we all know, sitting here, that gamers, we call them people who play video games, are a different kind of person than the casino environment is accustomed to. So in us providing entertainment, we have to look at both sides, right? I mean, we have to look at what's going to be solved for the casino, because they obviously want to make money the traditional way. And then there's, the gamers who don't buy into the traditional format of the casino. So putting those 2 things together, I think that when you touched upon the Gamer's Edge technology, and you probably found this for yourself too, because you're probably, and I've seen the early stuff and I've seen the stuff that you're doing now, and I knew that there was an evolution happening, because you had to bring along an industry, which is what we do too, but you had to bring along this industry that's just not very familiar with what we're trying to do, to a point where they can feel more comfortable about what's going on. So the Gamer's Edge, is that like some type of software, or is it something, I mean, gamers are inspired differently than regular casino slot players or something like that. So is that the piece that you've pushed to that will kind of solve this problem for both worlds?
So Gamer's Edge is patent pending technology. It's an algorithm that's built into our platform and accessed in our games. And it really unlocks skill in the games. The truth is, most of the previous games from GameCo and other companies in this space are really more interactive than skill-based. But we saw the opportunity to make games that are truly skill-driven. And we do think that's one of the things that gamers are looking for is an edge where if I play more skillfully or more strategically, depending on the game, I'm going to get a better payout and outcome than the average player. And we've been able to accomplish that in Gamer's Edge, both from a regulatory standpoint and also from a gameplay and user experience standpoint. But you touched on another really important point, Ben, and I think we have a great opportunity as an industry to reimagine the physicality of the casino as well. Casinos have really looked the same for a long time now. And while they might have different themes, they ultimately have very similar physical built environments and experiences. And one of the things that Gameco has been focused on is helping casinos understand how they can repurpose the infrastructure and campuses that they have now to appeal to this audience. And I'll give you a great example. Sports books are actually amazing environments to repurpose into esports arenas. Sports books have incredible technology, seating, screens, production capabilities, but the reality is they're empty 90 or 95% of the time because there usually isn't a live sporting event that would make them full with actual patrons. At Gameco, we're combining our bar top VGM. So this is a device that would normally go into a bar, but we're able to put them into sports books, which often have desks that are actually very well physically distanced for safety guidelines, tie them in with our multiplayer arena technology, connect them to the big screens, and now you're able to repurpose your sports book as an esports arena, tie that in with esports betting, as well as some really cool viewing technologies as well. So now you can take this physical environment that's actually really cool and aligned with what gamers are looking for and repurpose it and hopefully make it more useful from the casino standpoint.
I wanted to touch on a quick question because Ben mentioned the old guard of people who would play slots and their motivation to play a slot machine is more about the opportunity for them to win by chance. And so if you have a game that you've created based on skill, then anyone that, for let's say it's a Soul Calibur game or something that's a common video game that's been out there, if someone comes into the casino, they're going to be experts at it. It's not much of an attraction to them to pull them to play the game because they're just great at it. I guess if they wanted to keep winning money, that's a great thing to do. But what I'm asking is, can you guys create, or are you creating your own base of games that are really challenging players from something that they haven't seen before in the commercial world?
So that's a great question, Ari. And Gameco is an open platform. So we work with game developers and publishers all around the world. And you touched on Soul Calibur 2 from Bandai Namco, which will release when casinos reopen. I think from a multiplayer standpoint, it's a real attraction to a skilled player to be able to come into a casino environment and take part in either a head-to-head tournament or a bracketed tournament, show off their skills, and win real money. I think we'd all agree the fighting games community is one of the most interesting communities in the esports and video game ecosystem. And we're really excited about giving those players and fans the ability to show off and compete and win money in the casino. But you talked about other new types of games as well. And absolutely, a good example is a game that we have coming out when casinos reopen called Destination Tiki. It's developed by a third-party developer called Funky John, and they're a really talented group of game developers that make mobile and social games. And Destination Tiki is a new take on Match 3. In fact, it has the trademark Match 3 slots, but it's also very skill and strategy driven. So as an example, in this game, Destination Tiki, and it's a matching game where you're trying to match the same symbols. If you match 8 or more of the same symbols, you unlock a Gamer's Edge payout. So it gives the player motivation to really focus on the skill and strategy in that game to manipulate the board and get these outcomes that unlock bigger payouts. And that's something that we think is going to appeal to a really wide range of audience. While we see that our average player is like 25 to 35 years old, which makes sense because the ESA says that the average gamer is 33 years old, we also find that we have lots of older people playing our games. In fact, I will never forget the first ever player to play a skill-based game in North America when we launched in November 2016 was a 70-year-old Vietnam veteran and his wife who played our first-person action game called Danger Arena. And he specifically said he loved playing first-person action games at home on his console. So we see a really wide audience for these games.
No, I agree.
Yeah, we know that. But it's good that you brought that up. I mean, from the casino side for a second, I think that when we first started talking about this years ago, when we did our first CEC, I bring this up all the time. Most people didn't see the possibility or the revenue or anything else, but we're going to leave that alone for a second. I'm just going to say that one thing I think that might put some people at ease is this notion that either esports or video gaming related is easy to cheat on. Okay. And I wanted to bring this up because I sort of wanted to calm down this concept that throughout video gaming, it's always been an element of being able to detect that or handle that. So it does easily go hand in hand with the casino concept of being able to watch or regulate how people play. Can you just elaborate a little bit on that and then touch back on how you manage that, but in general, for the people that are listening?
Sure. So I'll touch on it on two parts. One is in our games in land-based casinos, and the other is in esports betting. Mm-hmm. Our games in land-based casinos are tested and certified by independent test labs like GLI and BMM. These companies are experts at testing casino games against standards and regulations. We're a licensed gaming manufacturer. We take things like patron fairness extremely seriously. One example in our machines is we have an audit system in the game where a slot floor manager can pull up the last 50 plays of the game, and they can actually see a screenshot of the exact moment at which a player took an action in the game. And they can verify with that screenshot what the outcome was. So they're actually able to go into the game and audit the outcome of each and every bet. And then you have the questions around integrity in esports betting, and I love addressing this because of exactly the points that you raise. And I do think a lot of it, in all fairness, comes down to stereotypes around gamers, that we're teenagers in our parents' basement, that, we're antisocial, or whatever the stereotype.
A bunch of hackers, right?
A bunch of hackers. So the reality that I like to raise is games are digital. And therefore, it actually makes integrity monitoring quite a bit easier and more definitive than integrity monitoring in a lot of traditional sports where they are physical and often subjective. Did the tennis ball land on the line? Well, now we have to go back to the replay. Was the player's foot inside the end zone, or, was that baseball, inside or out of field? And I think it's really important to remember that because these games are digital and because the betting markets are digital, you're actually able to monitor the integrity around this in a way that simply isn't possible with physical sports. And I think that as regulators get more and more comfortable, there are, of course, also third-party integrity monitors like ESIC, the Esports Integrity Commission. And whenever we're working with casinos and sports books, we're always helping them understand the integrity aspects that are essentially built into esports that really don't exist in other sports.
You
Right.
know,
Is there,
go ahead, Ben.
I just wanted to know with what you've created, back in the day when we played pinball, there was a tilt feature in the game. Is there any like stopgap during the game that would detect anything during play? And one other thing I just wanted to bring up was the fact that, regulators and casinos themselves should be a little at ease by the idea that most of in tournaments anyway, there is that, we could go back to it's almost instantaneous, like to be able to detect these things. Whereas, in an actual sporting event, once you've awarded the person the money, it's actually even harder to retract or recant. I think it's much quicker in esports and video gaming.
So I agree with you, and I'd always like to point out, I think regulators are very open-minded and supportive of innovation. They're looking out for patron fairness, and if you give them the tools to be able to manage a patron dispute and to have comfort in things like integrity, they want to support new products that attract and monetize new audiences. And we find that it's really worth the time to communicate and educate and have collaborative discussions with regulators about video games and esports. Regarding your questions about our land-based games, there are a number of tilt features in the game. And the three that I would say matter most are, we have physical intrusion tilts just like a slot machine. Trust me, you're not getting inside of these boxes.
Okay.
For our games that have input devices, we also build in free tutorials before you play the game. And those free tutorials actually act as a test to confirm that the input devices are working properly. You won't even be able to get into the game if you don't press every button before the game starts and you make your first wager. And then we also have a really interesting thing in the game called the confidence interval test. And not to get too mathematical about it, what that is testing is that the theoretical payout of the machine is converging with the actual payout of the machine on a long-term basis. And if for any reason they fell out of sync, which could point to potential issues like cheating or other kinds of integrity issues, the machine would tilt. It would come to the awareness of the slot floor tech at the property, and if needed, they'd be able to go in and audit the machine. So there are a number of features that are built into all of the Gameco VGMs to ensure fairness and patron dispute resolution.
That's
So
great.
I just
Great information.
we're gonna be winding down soon. We have about another 5 minutes, but I wanted to ask you, all your products are very innovative, very changing. How do you see in the future now? I mean, the CEC is all about video gaming, esports integration, skill-based integration. How do you now see also with the landscaping that we talked about of changing in the casino, virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and the actual overall entertainment to the customer that walks in the door of a brick and mortar? How can you, besides that, I mean, besides what you're working on, we need to create an entire world for younger people to really have a lot of fun there. What more do you think we can add?
Well, I agree with you. The casino is a great environment for this. It's a very large built environment. It has the right infrastructure, amazing hospitality, VIP experience. And I think one thing that'll be interesting to see is there's probably an excess of casino space now more than ever. So one of the things that we find is that typically casinos were built for many more slot machines than they have today. Because over time, slot machines have been optimized to generate more revenue per machine, so you need fewer of them. I think we're definitely going to see a trend of casinos taking parts of their spaces and redesigning them for younger audiences. And it might be seamless on the floor where I walk from the old casino to the new casino. It might be a separate part of the floor that is specifically designed for younger audiences. And I think, and I always have, and it's actually in our tagline at Gameco, the video game casino, of course we are going to see in the next few years the first ever floor-to-ceiling video game casino specifically targeted towards this generation.
Yeah, well, that's a lot to look forward to. And, you know, with the pandemic now winding down, hopefully, we hope to see you in September at the CEC, September 8th through the 10th. Blaine will be there on panels and talks, and he'll have a display as well.
Yeah, he's actually, you know, he's been there with the CEC since the beginning. He's a big supporter, and we want to thank him for that. Yeah. And spreading the word to everybody else to get him there so that we can do our stuff, so that we have more of this for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. Glad to support your initiative. It's great to see the innovation happening in all parts of the industry.
All right.
All right. Have a good one.
Stay safe, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, take care. Be well. Stay safe. I'll see you guys soon.
See you soon.
Bye.